Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Marvel Contest of Champions. And I have done my first run on Wheel of Fate. And I wanted to give a few of my thoughts about what I thought about it, how hard I thought it was, whether I think it is fair for free-to-play players or whether it is a pay-to-play player event, some of the controversies behind it, all that and more. Don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this video. Hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. And don't forget to hit that notification bell or share this video. All right, so we have finished our first run of Wheel of Fate, and I was not so overwhelmed by it, but maybe a little bit underwhelmed by it. For those that don't know, and this is how it works, it's at the preview button here, and I'll go through how it works. There is a filter going into each fight for which champions you can use, and it's different for every one of the quests. There's 3 different quests, and there are 12 opponents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then there's Thanos at the end. So there's really 13, but there's 12 non-Thanos champions. You must change your champion between each opponent, and it is a different pool of champions every time you go in. So, for instance, this key right here, the gate is 2024 champions, whereas this gate is whatever these are. And the next gate is a completely different list of champions. And so, if you're going to do this, it behooves you to go in and look. I went through a few other people's videos that had already done it. Simulus67, love his videos, awesome, big shout out to him. KT1, great videos, another big shout out to him. Legacy, another one, big shout out to him. So, you know, I always kind of go through some of their videos first before I go, and because they're usually out like the first day doing this, and they get it. Now, so one of the good things I like, here's one of the really good things I like about this. Once you're done with the fight, your health goes up to 100% for the next fight. So you're not spending a bunch of health potions in between fights. I do like that mechanic a lot. A lot of times when we get this really hard content, we do have to spend a bunch of health potions in between fights, and that is not the case for this. Now, I have a very large roster, and so there's a few big complaints about this. Complaint number 1 is folks that do not have a 7-star roster that looks very much like this. So, for instance, I have 6 rank for 7 stars. Very few people have more than 6. There are a few people, but by now, most of the top players in the game have 6. I have, I don't know. These are all rank 3s. There's a lot. I'm not going to go through and count them. So there's a lot of rank 3s there. A lot of people don't have that. And this material is looking for very specific champions to be able to go from one gate to the next. And so the first gate is that's a pretty big list. 2024, that's a pretty big list. But the next gate, you may not have any of these champions, or you may have one of them. And there are very few choices that you can get to do this content very well. And again, these champions they're around a 2 million health pool. They're around a 300,000. And they have nodes on them as well. So they are trickier fights because they do have nodes on them. So that is one big controversy that is going through the community right now, that Kabam kind of put this content behind a paywall. A lot of free-to-play players cannot do this content, whereas they could have done, say, the Epic of Pain with Ares. Now, is Wheel of Fate as difficult as Epic of Pain? No. The only thing that makes Wheel of Fate maybe more difficult is if you don't have those champs. But if you have the champs, it's not difficult. I think on average, for each one of these fights, and I'm not the best at this game, I'm very realistic about my ability. Certain special twos I have a very hard time dexing, and that's okay. And there's a few very hard champs in here that, are very big defenders in things like Battlegrounds that are very hard to defeat. I think on average I spend about maybe 3 or 4 revives per fight. So it's very doable. But, we've got, let's see, like hard champions in here. Gore, he got a little bit much because of the nodes he's got on him, and then he gets a lot of regen. So you have to deal with that. Dazzler's pretty easy. I soloed the Lady Deathstrike. Enchantress is annoying. She's just annoying because she has rules that you have to follow. Thor Ragnarok, he has a node on him that jacks him up, and so he gets his special 3 very fast. Arcade, another big defender because he's got a bunch of auto blocks and you have to do something about that. The leader, not so much. Bullseye is another big defender. I actually almost soloed him. I used Nick Fury for that fight, and Nick just destroyed him. I soloed Human Torch. I believe I soloed him. And Serpent is another one that is a really tough fight. Spiral, not so much. Dust is another one. If you don't know how to fight her, you don't have the right champ, that's a difficult one. And Deathless Thanos with the nodes that he's got on him is difficult. So that's the first category. Now, the second, or the first big complaint everybody's got. The second big complaint that everybody's got is this thing right here. This Wheel of Fate selector that was advertised during the live stream as having one of each of the defenders that you are going to fight. And you'll see they are flipping over in the pictures here between the defenders. However, they're not all here. So if we preview this, we've got Gore, Dazzler, Lady Deathstrike, Enchantress, Arcade, the leader, Bullseye, Serpent, Spiral, Quest. Where's Human Torch? There's no Human Torch in here. There's no Deathless Thanos. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not 12. Human Torch is missing. And we've got Deathless Sword pieces. And we've got a 7-star Nexus. I didn't fight a 7-star Nexus Crystal. Or a 7-star Titan Nexus Crystal. I didn't fight that. Why is that in here? So, a lot of people are upset because Kabam Mike, not Kabam Mike, but Karate Mike, who is a different Kabam now. Karate Mike came on the stream and said, the selector will contain all of the defenders. And there are 2 of these defenders that are missing out of here. Gore was there. Dazzler was there. I can't remember who the other one was, but Human Torch is definitely not there. Let's see here. Is Dazzler in that? So let's go back here and view rewards. And preview this again. There's Dazzler. Okay, so we've got we've got all of them. No Human Torch. And there was another one missing here. The leader's there. I did that one, yes. Somebody else was missing. There's somebody between Arcade and the leader, I believe. Okay, those were there. Thor Ragnarok is not there either. So we're missing all, not that I care about Thor Ragnarok, but we're missing all of these. All of these are missing. So what are my thoughts on this? Not as hard as Epic of Pain. I have a very big roster. It is, the first round was fun. The second round is going to be tedious, and so is the third round. It's the same champs in the same champs in the same nodes. for the next quest in here comes around, okay? So I'm going to be doing that here in the next week. I'm going to take my time doing these because I've already done Act 9 to 100%. So we've got this first restriction, which is medium defensive utility. But all of these are the same defenders with the same exact node. So I just have to fight them essentially the same way. And all of the choices on here are different. So you see here, I only have, 10 to choose from here? Whereas this node, I have a whole bunch to choose from. And this node, I have a whole bunch to choose from. But it, again, is a difference. So the only difference between each one of these quests is the champion pools change. That's it. And again, that is complaint number 1, is the champion pools are restrictive. And the complaint is because it's restrictive, it's behind a paywall. Now, the other complaint is this guy right here. We were told in the stream we could get him out of the selector. We cannot get him out of the selector. He is going to be available on the July 4th weekend sales, and he is going to be behind a paywall. So you're only going to be able to get him in the web store through a track event on the web store, which means you're going to have to buy a whole bunch of offers and accumulate points in the track till you get to him and you get him awakened. Just like they've done a whole bunch of times before. So he is a paywall champ. I don't know why they made that statement that he's in it, but he's not. Now, number 3 complaint. There is a final complaint on this, and that complaint is I did this really hard content with a very limited hero pool that I may not have had every champ. I have almost every single one of those champs in there. And these are the rewards I'm going to get for Quest 1. I'm going to get a third of a 7-star, 25% of a Titan. I'm getting 1 Tier 4 Alpha Catalyst, and I'm getting 3 Tier 6s. So I did this in about an hour and a half today. For very hard content, I don't think that is appropriate. So, for instance, for Epic of Pain, for a path, we got really good selector 7 stars, and I think it was Awakenings. But for this, we're not getting anything. Now, for Quest 2, we're going to get a 7-star Nexus. We are going to get a Titan. We're going to get a quarter of an Awakening Gem Crystal. That right there, that 7-star basic Catalyst, half of one of those should have been in Quest 1. Quest 1 should be a full 7-star, should be half of a Titan, and should have half of one of these. A minimum of 30% of one of those. 2 of those, and then for the final thing, we're going to get this 7-star Epic Crystal. We're getting the rest of our Awakening Crystal, and we're getting the 2 that we need to rank up, and we're getting 6 of these. Now, I thought that there was a sticker or a profile pic or something in here as well somewhere. I guess there's going to be something. But I'm going to be putting out a Excel sheet, and we're going to look at that Excel sheet here in a second. I'm going to be putting out an Excel sheet that is going to look at who I'm going to use for this second wave. I can tell you right now, out of medium defensive utility champs, good Lord, medium defensive utility, add tags. Where is defensive utility? That's a defensive utility, confirm. Medium ones, maybe Nick Fury. And it depends on if he's immune to bleed, but maybe Nick Fury, maybe it looks like I'm going to be using Spider-Ham a lot for this whole thing, but you have to shut off Gore's regeneration. You have to shut it off. Maybe Silk, she could probably shut it off. But nobody here really has anything that's pretty decent. I would say maybe Joe Fixit. Some of these science champs might be okay. And then the pools change. There's Spider-Ham there again. There's Spider-Ham there again. And no Spider-Ham that time. Ooh, I see Hyperion. But it's just different pools of champions. So that the second and third runs of this are tedious. Now let's take a look. I've got an Excel sheet here. This is what I did for each one of the champs. Gore down to Thanos. I put in the nodes that I thought were going to be the most annoying to me, to remind me to look at those nodes before I go and fight that person, that champion, that opponent. So I knew to pay attention to that, like Matador for Enchantress. That means I'm not getting any power unless I have her do a special attack. And so I have to play her game, and I have to go through all her rules to get all that junk turned off so I don't take a bunch of damage when she uses her special one. Fancy Footwork, Countdown to Lockdown, that was another one. That was on Gore. He would only use a special one a certain number of times before he used a special two, and I'm terrible at dexing his special two. So here are my attackers, and for comparison, I put the attackers that KT1 had. Now, I don't have a Jean Grey. This is like the one I've seen the most for Thanos. I don't have a Jean Grey, and the reason people were using Jean Grey is because Thanos has some reverse controls on him. So instead, I just used Colossus. Did I solo? No, absolutely not. No way did I solo. Did I have to use a bunch of revives where I figured out like the most efficient way to do it with Colossus? Absolutely. But with him, I was banking on being able to parry and heavy and being able to do a bunch of damage once he got enough armor ups and to be able to get a special 2 in to get those big numbers in. And it worked out pretty well. Towards about after I had gotten him about halfway down, I was able to figure out the rhythm to dex his special 1, even with the reverse controls, which I suck at going around, and it worked out. Count Nefaria, he was okay against Gore. He was able to control his regen pretty well. Not completely, because the more damage he takes, the more regen he gets, but he was able to control it pretty well. Overseer, absolutely awesome for Dazzler. Once I got to his Cosmic Power turn on, just did tons of damage. Vox is the one for Lady Deathstrike. I was able to solo that one. Absolutely the one to do it. Onslaught, great for Enchantress. Doesn't take incinerate damage. Doesn't really take shock damage. Don't care about it. And I was able to, get big chunks of her health down between revives. Symbiote Supreme, I made a mistake, and I thought that Thor Ragnarok had a buff for his power gain. Not a buff. It's a passive. So that was my problem. But still, he did quite a bit of damage. Scream took me a little while to figure out with Arcade. I probably would have used Vox instead. Atuma, pretty good against Leader. Unfortunately, you don't get to use a lot of heavies with this, and he just Leader uses his special one a lot, but I was still able to do quite a bit of damage. Nick Fury almost soloed Bullseye. He is awesome. That is a great, great fight. Spider-Ham did solo Human Torch, I believe. That was a great fight, too. Spiral, I'm glad I saw that on KT1's page. That was a go-to. Very good at controlling his power and keeping it a special 1. And the special 1 doesn't really do that much damage if you're able to block it. Red Skull for Spiral, you have to play that one a little bit differently. Ironheart, absolutely the one to go after Dust. And again, remember, these are all in the first quest. Absolutely the one to go after Dust. Just wrecked her as long as you can get all your incinerates on. Colossus, not so much. I was getting used to it at the end, and I was able to do 25-30% of his health after I had played it a couple of times. Now I'm going to have to play a different character, but I kind of know the rhythm that I'm going to have to go through. So all in all, my impression of this content is, I would say, compared to Epic of Pain, not as fun. More tedious, not as fun, not going to be fun, not even going to be doable for a lot of free-to-play players. So, and the rewards suck for the first quest. So, paywall sucks, and Kabam essentially lied to us about the final reward. So, things I did like, I do like that all the champs are the same, so we can get used to fighting the same champs with the same nodes for each of the quests, and our health comes back at the end of it. I did like that quite a bit. That is a good thing. So we're not spending as many health potions. All right, that is what I have for everybody. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody